are gathered all here today, and I want to, why don't everyone give themselves a round of applause for being here today. Thank you so much. I won't speak too long. We have some amazing, amazing speakers here today that are doing amazing work in the community every single day. Hello, Kimberly, how's it going? So, let me kind of give my opening remarks. We all know why we're here today. And we're here today because this country, this state, is sick. And it's sick with white supremacy. And there are people in this State House behind me who fully acknowledge that there is a cure. They fully acknowledge that black people, black and brown communities, are being affected by systems of oppression. And the people behind me are advocating for a radical change of thought, getting people free health care. Can we have some people clap for that? Replacing racist cops with people who care about the community and represent the community. You know, we hear oftentimes that people say, oh, well, defund the police. That's a scary word. Well, let me throw out a word that these talking points, these right-wing conservatives aren't ready for. Let's reallocate funds. How about that? Let's provide shelter for people out on the street. Let's feed the hungry. Let's get people jobs that have lost since the pandemic. There is absolute no reason why we should be spending more on a police militarized state than feeding our own people. Yeah. The people behind me, the people here today, we are unified through action. When I say unified through action, say it after me. Unified through action.
Unified through action.
Say it again.
Unified through action.
Say it again.
Unified through action.
Unified through action means that we come together like we came here today and we're able to call for change. And not only say, no, we're not interested in having incremental change. Incremental change is having people like Daunte Wright murdered on the street because of an air freshener. We want impactful change now. And we're not going to wait. We want impactful change and we want it now. And as far as I'm concerned, is that unless that's not happening, unless the police behind me, unless the police out there and these politicians who are not actively looking to divest from the police, who are actively looking to keep the status quo, they have blood on their hands. They have blood on their hands. And they're playing a huge part in keeping the way the thing is. And that means the moderate Democrats to have the majority in this place. What the PAC's gonna do, what the people behind me are gonna do, is we're gonna get those people out and replace them with members of the community like David Morales right there. We're gonna get a majority in the city council. And we are gonna reallocate funds for the people. Black lives matter, everybody. From now on, I'm gonna bring over Joshua Franco. Yes, first. For a second. Our outreach director, and I'll take a step back, and if anybody wants to make any comments, we're going to wait until after the speakers all talk. I advise all the media to stay here and listen.
How's everyone doing? It's time to channel that anger we have into taking action. We must stand together and fight against institutional racism. The time is now to reallocate funds from the police department into programs that will benefit the people's best interests. The time is now to invest into our youth. At this very moment, Rhode Island ranks 42nd in the nation. 42nd in the nation in higher education. That is horrible. That is horrible. The time is now to get involved and testify on the behalf on the progressive bills so we can actually pass bills that is best for the people. Also, support our state officials that we can call allies, that are public servants, and hold public officials that are not for the people and have self-interest. Hold them accountable. That means if they take corporate PAC money, they gotta go. They gotta go. I need everyone to repeat after me. Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black prosperity matters.
Black prosperity matters.
Blackness matters.
Blackness matters.
And lastly, repeat after me. United we stand, divided we fall.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Again, united we stand, divided we fall.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Thank you, everyone.
No, I like that energy. Here we go. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right, here we go. I would next like to introduce. Ready? I'd like to next introduce my mentor. This summer I met Rodney through one of the protests, and he's truly been a mentor to me, and it's really, really cool that I get to introduce Rodney here. So Rodney, take the mic, buddy.
Hello everybody. First off, I want to say all praises to Allah before I start this. So Harrison hit me up and he asked me to speak. And when he asked me to speak, of course I said yes, because I wasn't going to say no to this young king. But then immediately afterwards, I started thinking to myself, what am I going to talk about? Unfortunately, I don't have anything to talk about, because everything I can say to you, you've already heard. We go through this year after year, month after month, day after day at times, when we see young brothers and sisters killed at the hands of the police. When's it gonna stop? It's like a bad movie that keeps getting replayed and replayed over and over and over. There's only one way to stop it though. We do not need you to be an ally. I'm gonna say that again. We do not need you to be an ally. We need you to be an accomplice. You need to get into good trouble. So being an ally is coming to a protest, pumping your fist, clapping, and then when you go home, and when you're around your friends and family, they say racist things, they do racist things, and you don't check their ass. Being an accomplice, when you see something, you check them right away. Being an accomplice is holding the State House accountable for all they've done to us. Again, like I said, I don't have much to say here, but I know we're tired of waking up and seeing this on our video, on our phones, and our televisions. We're tired of seeing this over and over and over again. I'm 41 years old in November. Should I be here right now? No. Should any of you be here right now? No. Should these young kings and queens be up here right now? No. This shit should have been taken care of a long time ago. The difference now is that when the civil rights movement came on, we were told just to calm down and turn the cheek and take what they're giving you. That shit's not popping anymore. Not with the youth we have now. They're on a whole different energy. If we don't get what we're supposed to get, we're gonna force it. Thank you.
By the way, just a little interruption. All the way to my left, we have a table. And that table, if you look, it's right near David. He's got the Fight the Power mask on, bright orange. The woman over there is named Corinne. Corinne is amazing. You should go talk to her. And if you have not gotten vaccinated and you're from the BIPOC community, please go to that table and we will have sign-up sheets over there. Thank you very much. Speaking of sign-up, the next person I'm going to introduce is one of the leaders in today's community, someone who led the effort in getting 2,600 people vaccinated in the BIPOC community this weekend. Someone, despite the state having a quote-unquote glitch, where we registered over 3,000 people, stayed the path. This person is someone who I consider a friend. This is someone who I will advocate for. This is Dr. Munoz.
I was thinking about what to say as I was driving over. And I just want to start by saying that this is a movement of people. It has to be a movement of people if we want to see these systems transform. And not just transform, but built anew. You know, 500 years before our communities were racialized, before we were called Black and Latino and Asian and Indigenous, 500 years before that, there was an African priest by the name of Thomas Aquinas that said, justice, that is, mercy without justice, is the mother of disillusion. But justice without mercy is cruelty. And it's interesting that our racialized communities find themselves at the side of the coin that is subject to cruelty. And so when are we going to realize that it's going to take a movement of people, a community rising up to build a system of public safety that benefits us rather than subjects us to a level of cruelty that time and time again we see and we call out but do nothing else. We don't affect programmatic change. So my call to youth here today is to run for city council. Run for city office. Take out the reps that do not have the courage, do not have the political courage to advocate for you and to advocate for the children that you will have and the grandchildren that they will have. It is 2021. We have had Black lives lost to a virus as a result of systemic inequities that we see in healthcare systems. We have seen abuses and police brutality perpetuated in a time where we should see unity. If you do not rise today, if you do not rise now, then you have no excuse tomorrow. You will have no excuse tomorrow. My name is Munoz. I stand with the community leaders here. I stand with the community leaders that are not here, but we're there Saturday saving lives with vaccines, and we'll be here at the Dunkin' Donuts Center saving more lives this weekend. And if you will be our accomplice to change, if you decide to stand with us and to transform the systems, to create systems in you here in Rhode Island, to affect the level of change and revolution that we need to see across the country, then you'll be there with us.
It's about changing systems, y'all. It's about changing systems. We need a radical change of the way we think about our governing body. We need to really focus on that. When you come up about it, it's about action. So let me hear unity through action.
Unity through action.
Let me hear unity through action.
Unity through action.
One of the people that's doing great work in the young community, in the youth committee, is going to be forming pretty soon, is Zachary Pinto. Can we give it up for Zachary?
Kim Potter killed Daunte Wright on April 11th. She has been a police officer for 26 years, and she mistook her handgun for her taser and shot Wright. Adam Coy shot and killed Andre Hill on December 22nd, 2020. He was in the force for 19 years and he mistook a ring of keys for a gun and shot Hill. On March 18th, 2018, Stephon Clark was killed in his own backyard by Sacramento police after a deputy mistook his cell phone for a gun. On April 17th, off-duty police officer William Daniel Short mistook a phone's flashlight for a gun flash and shot a 14-year-old boy. The question I have today is how long do members of the black and brown communities have to disproportionately pay for the mistakes made by police? I'd like to take a quick second here, a moment of silence for those that we have lost to the mistakes from police. Thank you.
Next up, the co-chair of Prop DSA, Kimberly.
Kimberly. I'm just a local organizer with the Providence CSA and Reclaim RI. I have to say it is sad and infuriating to see yet another black person being gunned down by cops for no good cause. I stand here in solidarity with you all to honor Daunte Wright's memory and demand justice. May he rest in peace. I guess this is what going back to normal looks like. It's why normal has to go. We shouldn't be in a rush to return to normal when what's normal is, the murder of citizens by those tasked to protect. When what's normal is barbaric and unjust. Every few months, we come out here protesting the same thing, and yet the system remains as sturdy as ever. I want you to ask yourselves, what will it take to change this? To stop what is so clearly wrong and despicable. The barbarity that we see in the criminal justice system is a symptom of a sick society with a strict and cruel hierarchy. Ask yourselves why we never see Wall Streeters accidentally gunned down by cops or other powerful money individuals. This violence tends to be overwhelmingly poor and black people. This country has deemed poor black people to be at the bottom of the social ladder, not worthy of investments, protection, and a future. That has to change. When we demand justice, we must demand economic justice alongside it. For the first act of violence committed against poor black people is the robbing of their wealth and dignity through enforced generational poverty. Extended all the way from the time that the slaves won their freedom. The execution by cops is but the last crime committed by the state in a series of crimes. So what must we demand? We must demand for all shooting involving a cop and a citizen to be investigated by the federal government. We need guilty cops to catch guilty verdicts, so we need qualified immunity gone. We need to remove funding for top to bottom. We need to draft a prisoner's Bill of Rights that guarantees that prisoners are treated like people. We need to end the war on drugs and treat addiction as a health issue, not a criminal wrong. And all around, we need to create a system that breaks the cycle of violence. Then we need to end what is the mother of crime, which is poverty. Poverty is a choice our society has made, and we can choose at any time to restructure society so that people have a floor under them.
Yes.
We can make sure everyone is guaranteed a high standard of living so no one ever has to steal, sell drugs, sell their body to make ends meet ever again. We can create a society where people don't have to self-medicate because their current reality is intolerable. We can end the pain that is still common in America. But first, we must make our demands clear and organized to enact the highest political costs upon those politicians and the special interests that hold up a corrupt system and protect dirty cops through sheer greed and racism. We must be even more clear about escalating our efforts to meet the needs of the downtrodden till justice is done, till the system has been fundamentally made anew. To those who serve the needs of the powerful, bend the knee. We won't go home till the fight is over.
Thank you, Harrison. Good afternoon. All right, listen, I'm an old Baptist minister. Y'all gonna have to do a little bit better than that. Good afternoon. First off, I want to thank you guys for coming out here today. You didn't have to, but you're here. You could have went and got dinner. You could have went off and got a drink after work, but you're here. So you give yourselves a round of applause. Clap for the person next to you because you didn't have to be here. Thank you, BLM and Harrison, for the opportunity to speak. I don't get many opportunities to speak because sometimes people really don't want to hear my mouth, but you're going to hear it anyway. Tonight, my heart is in total grief. It's been in grief for a while, for a long time. I'll never forget in 2014, my very first rally for Trayvon Martin. Actually, it was before that, sorry. My very first march for Trayvon. I'll never forget when I got out here last summer, when there was 10,000 people. I'll never forget when we got out here in March for trans lives. I will never forget the stories I was told by my grandmother when she was raised in the South. I will never forget my cousin Jarvis that was gunned down in Dallas by a police officer for jogging with headphones on. I shall never forget. I hear the tears of the mothers. I hear the tears of the sons and daughters who have lost their parents. I hear the family, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins. But you know what I hear most? I hear a community saying, God, hear me. We are hurting and injustice is happening. And quite frankly, I'm sick and tired. And somebody said to me, well, Dion, you know, you're a minister. You shouldn't get angry. But I'm reminded of the story, if you can indulge with me for a quick second, when Jesus went into the temple. And everything was going wrong in the temple, and he was not happy. So what did he do? He went in and he changed over the money tables. He tore the temple apart. That's how I feel when I look at this building and institution that ignored us last summer. That's how I feel when the federal government is looking at us wrong. It's time for your temple to be cleansed. It's time for justice to be on American government. Joe Biden, we said you will do better. Then do it. I hold you accountable. I hold them accountable. Nancy Pelosi, we hold you accountable. No more shall mothers grieve. No more shall children cry. And no more shall a community grieve. Because the kingdom has suffered violence, and the violent is going to take it by force. If you don't give it to us, and I heard my brother say these young people ain't playing. Listen, I know I'm young, but I ain't no spring chicken. When I was 21 years old, they told me, wait your time, wait your time, wait your time. But what I love most about all you young people out there, all of you in your 20s and your teens, you're not saying, I am waiting my time. That's not the answer we're looking for. You're looking for action now. You're looking for justice now. You're looking for prosperity now. And you shall have it. But I gotta tell you this before I go. Stay steadfast. Stay steadfast. Keep moving. Make them uncomfortable. Because it's only when people are uncomfortable, real change can happen and the Spirit of God can move. Each and every one of you on tonight. My heart goes with you. My prayers go with you. I pray that God, Allah, Yahweh, however you call it, be a protection over you through the night and your families and our community. With that said, God bless.
Chant. The chant's gonna go as following. Power to the people. Alright, so when I say power to the people, you say it back. Ready? Power to the people!
Power to the people!
Power to the people!
Power to the people!
Power to the people means exactly what each and every single speaker spoke today. Getting the power from the people in that building to the people in front of me right now. That means each and every single one of us. That means this whole movement, this whole protest today, it means the work that we're doing, and I'm sure, because you know what happens after these events? They come to me and they're like, oh, well, Dad saw this, and he wants to work. I hope, because change needs to happen. And we are willing to work with the people who want to make change. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Next up, speaking my friends, someone who's on the advisory committee, which I recommend you guys joining for the path, Miguel.
What do we want?
Justice!
What do we want it?
Justice!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
Thank you. Before I start, I'd like to take a moment of silence to honor Daunte Wright, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and everyone else that has lost their life at the hands of the police. Thank you. Next, I would like to read out loud a quote by the great American poet Amanda Gorman. Being American is more than the pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. Give it up for Amanda Gorman. To understand what past we're stepping into, we have to know our history and understand how our current police models got into place. In the South, in the 1700s, police groups were formed to catch runaway slaves. In the 1800s, in the North, police groups were made to keep immigrants away from coming into cities like Providence, Boston, New York. These models were made to oppress black and brown folks. We need to abolish these models. We need police reform now. Just yesterday, a report came out on the Providence Police Department, and I'm going to read some data from that report. Fewer than 4% of calls in 2019 weren't for violent crimes. 24% of arrests had no category in the offense listed. In 2019, officers spent more than 1,300 hours responding to a person being annoyed. Another 1,800 hours were spent responding to complaints of loud music or parties. We don't need to send people with guns to civilian homes for loud music. Another 1,500 hours were spent on illegal parking. We don't need police officers to enforce traffic violations. Daunte Wright would still be alive today if that was the case. Another point of data from that report. The police use of force data was unable to be analyzed because the system did not accurately account data. What kind of bullshit is that? It's obvious that police departments need reform, and they need reform now. Our tax dollars are not being spent appropriately. Community residents testified and begged our city leaders this past summer for change. But our mayor and our city council responded by giving our police officers a new contract that included a 13% salary increase. The Lorza administration has the authority to immediately implement a cahoots
here in Providence. 2 days. For those that don't know what the Cahoots or the Starlight program out in Eugene or Denver are, it's a response model made up of EMT responder and usually a social worker that don't need guns or weapons. That 90% of our calls would be completely capable to be handled of such a response team. So what's next? What do we do with this energy? For those that don't know, like Dr. Pointed out earlier, there's 8 open council spots, 8 open city council seats open next year, 2022. Also, the mayor is up for race. So we need to organize and mobilize and use the energy to elect people that will represent the needs of the Providence residents. Thank you, everyone.
Part of the change during this election cycle is on the backs of black women. Give it up for black women. For what black women? In fact, if we can have the loudest cheer today for black women. Thanks, Gregory. Thanks, Gregory. Next up is one of our next community leaders, one of the leaders in the community with Reclaim RI. And by the way, if any of y'all want to go up to these community leaders and get involved, that's why we're here today, right? Because, you know, although I'm Black Lives Matter, RI Pat, you have Prov DSA, you have someone running for governor, you have an activist in Rodney, you have a talk show host. We've just got so many people up here and we want to all work together. Next up, Ariel from Reclaim Rhode Island.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? I don't need a chair. I don't need a chair. I want us to first take a moment. We all come from different places, from different belief systems, upbringings, and backgrounds. But today we are all here for one moment, for one person, under the same belief that what happened to Daunte Wright was not simply unjust, it was cruel. Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tom Gannon said that this murder appears to be from an accidental discharge. Accidental is defined as happening by chance, unintentionally or unexpectedly. Accidental is slipping into a puddle, getting a paper cut, or dropping a vase. Accidental is not killing someone at a routine traffic stop for charges the police accidentally sent to the wrong address. And I ask you, was it an accident when the PPD shot out the eye of a civilian earlier last year? Was it an accident when the police drove their cruisers into protesters' bodies last August? Was the beating of Joshua Robinson also at a traffic stop by the PPD in 2013 an accident? Was the
Here we go. That was the ultimate mic drop. That's what I said. Next up, we have another queen from the community, Zay Nabu.
Igbo is a tribe located in southeastern Nigeria, home to Obo. Obo was a proud father of his sons and unborn child. He was very intelligent and he hunted and protected his tribe. He was well respected. One morning, him and his friends went out to go hunting. Before he left, he went to sharpen his tools. While he was doing so, he heard whispers coming from his sleeping wife and his unborn baby saying, "The waters will bring you back to us. The waters will bring you back to us." When he heard this, he was confused. He thought, maybe my baby thinks I'm going into the water, but I'm just going to the woods. But sadly, while he was hunting, him and his men were captured by the Europeaners. They were beaten, chained, and shipped off overseas. On the voyage, Obo became a leader to the people. He comforted them and led the enslaved passengers. Anytime the pressure got to him, he would cry, and he would hear the whispers, "The water will bring you back to us. The water will bring you back to us." Still, not knowing what that meant. There is about 75 to 100 enslaved people on this ship, and when they reached the Georgia coast, they could see all the white people waiting for them. They knew their fate was to be slaves for the rest of their lives. Throughout the voyage, they've been through so much trauma. People got sick, people died, bodies thrown overboard, eaten by sharks. The females were raped, many of them were beaten. But to know they would go through trauma all over again for the rest of their lives hurt a different type of hurt. Obo wouldn't go through this agony again, so he led a revolt. They took over the captors, threw them overboard, and as they were approaching the shore, they locked arms and repeated, "The waters brought us here, the waters will take us away. The waters brought us here, the water will take us away." As they walked hand to hand overboard, they drowned themselves. The white people from the land saw this happening and threatened to shoot them. The Igbo people wouldn't listen, and they continued to go overboard. "The waters brought us here, the waters will take us away. The waters brought us here, the waters will take us away." This was the biggest mass suicide of enslaved people. It was a hard decision because they knew death was better than bondage. Hello, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To my brothers and sisters, and to all my Muslim brothers and sisters, happy Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak. Inna Ilahi wa inna Ilahi Rajoon, which translate, God, we come back to God, we go back to God. Rashard Brooks, say his name. Tatiana Jefferson, say her name. Stephon Clark, say his name.
Stephon Clark.
Orlando Castile, say his name.
Orlando Castile.
Eric Gardner, say his name.
Eric Gardner.
Michael Brown, say his name.
Michael Brown.
Tamir Rice, say his name.
Tamir Rice.
Breonna Taylor, say her name.
Breonna Taylor.
Trayvon Martin, say his name.
Trayvon Martin.
George Floyd, say his name.
George Floyd.
Daunte Wright, say his name.
Daunte Wright.
Day after day, our people are being killed, beaten, mutilated. Day after day, our mothers are kneeling on the pavement, their children used as a final resting bed. Day after day, black men are seen as threats, victims of racial profiling, stop and frisk. Day after day, boys are being introduced to the streets. Our girls are being sexualized. Day after day, our babies are being brought into a broken system we know as America. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Emancipation, Reconstruction, civil rights, the Black Lives Matter movement, what movement will save us? Systematic racism, gentrification, the school to prison pipeline, police officers, what will be the death of us? We are crying for help, and they are hearing nothing. We are bleeding, and they see nothing.
brought up a great point. And oftentimes, as black people, we forget where we come from. We are Africans first. We are Africans first. And once we start looking at ourselves as a part of a bigger continent, once we start looking at ourselves as a global struggle, we are not alone. Capitalism, imperialism, the economic structures that we have just don't affect our brothers and sisters here. They affect the Middle East, where our people are being bombed every single day. Woo! Every single day. We have people whose lives are seen as a commodity, to profit, to oil. How many times do we have to look over the TV to see not if just us if we're going to die, but our brothers and sisters in Africa, due to Africa and the militarized police state that's all across the world due to this country. And I ask yourself, when did this stop? When did this stop? It never stopped. We are just as bad as the Roman Empire. We are just as bad as the British. In fact, we're just an evolution of them. When the time comes and the people rise up, it won't just be black people. It will be all walks of life, all groups of oppressed people. We will come together, and we are coming together, and we will continue to fight for change, and we will win. So I ask yourself, next time you see a report where Syria is getting bombed, where anybody is being subjugated to killing and oppression, I want you, it's specific, oh my goodness, I got a little too excited. I want you to be able to see yourselves in those people's perspective. Because the kid in Syria who lost his home means just as much as the kid who loses his home here. Oh, Haiti. Oh yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, Haiti's been oppressed for thousands of years because they were the first group of people to revolt against the West. Let's give it up for Haiti. Oftentimes I hear, well, why are they poor? Well, they're poor because they stood up and had a revolution. So let's shout out to all Africans, okay, because we are all from different places, okay, we all come from different cultures. Someone who is fighting against imperialism, David, ready? Oh, he's doing the shadow box. Someone who's fighting against imperialism, a representative in this game. We often say, you know, let's get the people in. Well, this is somebody who is doing great work. This is someone who is you want to support. This is someone who you want to get behind. This is someone who I hope runs this state house one day. This is David Morales.
Now, brothers, sisters, and non-binary family, I understand that today we've heard a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, with trauma and lives behind each and every single one of them. And it's important that we continue to emphasize those points. We continue to emphasize the fact that since the year 2015, on an annual basis, more than 800 lives have been murdered at the hands of law enforcement. They've been murdered at the hands of police. Since then, over 6,500 souls have been taken. And most of the times, about 98% of the time, little to no accountability is held. And I mentioned that. I say it as a reminder to the people right behind me, to the people right behind the glass doors who had their arms folded. I say it to the police right behind us. The fact that we have over 12 police officers inside the State House with the police cruisers parked in the parking lot, and we got another set right in front of the mall.
What's your job?
Why? What are they scared of? Last time I checked, they get away with all the violence, little to no accountability, yet they act like they are the victims. Is it because they're tone deaf? Is it because they don't care? And I come to the conclusion, it's because they don't care. Because they know they can get away with this. And we can talk about qualified immunity, but to really localize it down here in the state of Rhode Island, I want to let everyone know that we have something that is called the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights here. It has existed since the 1970s. Right during the peak of the civil rights era. And the police unions, they pushed for it, and they got it. City leaders buckled down to them. State leaders buckled down to them. And since then, we have had several cases of police violence, police brutality, here in the city of Providence, here in the state of Rhode Island, that has gone under the covers. Because of the fact that disciplinary action is never displayed to the public. Despite the fact that it's our tax dollars funding their police cruisers, it's our tax dollars funding their offices, their uniforms, their weapons, and everything in between. Yet and still, they can continuously get away with violence. And then they come back and complain, oh, people are talking about defunding us. Yet at the same time, we've been talking about the fact that we've defunded our schools. We have a state budget right now, a state budget that includes allocations for 23 new police officers. And at the same time, we just cut Medicaid for the 6th year in a row. So it also comes down to a lot of the backroom deals that happen within City Hall and inside the State House. The fact that these police unions, because we support labor unions, correct? However, there are certain occupations where they already have authority, where they already have power. They don't need any further bargaining power. And that is the police unions. There's a lot of work to be done. I think the top priority here in the state of Rhode Island is to make sure that we get rid of the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. It is not right that a panel of active and retired law enforcement officers get to determine whether an officer accused of misconduct or alleged of misconduct with actual evidence of it gets disciplined. Doesn't make sense for a law enforcement officer, again, active or retired, to make the decision on whether one of their fellow comrades, whether one of their fellow brothers is going to get in trouble? No, of course they're always going to side with them. What's the incentive to side with the public or to side with the victim? Little to none, especially if the victim is a person of color with little to no resources, depending on a public defender that is already overworked.
That's right, David.
So as we stand here today, I just want to remember, there's a lot of police violence happening in our own backyard. There are a lot of protections that the people behind me, the 12 dozen people who, again, have their arms folded and look like they're ready to throw some fists. Because they're, who else recalls during the summer? The fact that we were protesting in front of the State House, yet we were met with riot gear? And I still remember the chants. I don't see a riot gear, why are you wearing riot gear? And thankfully, today they were respectful enough to keep inside and to not have riot gear. But yet and still, their presence is sending us a message. Not a message of solidarity, but a message of we're ready to strike if we feel the need to, because we know we have the protections, and a lot of you don't. And as I was driving over here getting ready for the protest, it saddened me to see a paddy wagon parked right in front of the State House. Almost as to say, we're ready to arrest a couple of you. But again, let's remember, this fight stays local and it trickles up, going from the grassroots all the way to the top. So thank you all for being here, because I promise you, we're going to do whatever it takes inside of there to make sure that the state budget does not funnel additional money towards police, while at the same time we're cutting healthcare services and not properly funding Providence Public Schools that has lead in their water pipes. That to me seems like a lot more of a priority than having more armed officers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. From the bottom up. That's truly a fact. So the people here may think, oh, well, I just show up to a protest, but can I really make change in the State House? Everyone here that has come up to speak is a testament that you can make change. That you can make change. Speaking of change, next up, we have another community leader. Everyone give it up for Brooklyn.
Say her name was created for black non-men, specifically black women. And it's literally because they are hidden in the state-sanctioned violence that happens against us every single day in America. So when you say his name, you're erasing the black woman and the black non-men that the movement was created for. You can definitely honor fallen victims, but co-opting our black non-men and our black femmes is not how you do that. I just want to make that clear. Something else I would also really like to address, I just feel like, especially last year, my first year organizing in Providence, I feel like a lot of us are in this twilight zone, if I'm using the right word, where I guess if we come to protest, if we go to direct actions, we have clothing and food drives, that means that we're eradicating anti-blackness and racism. It doesn't stop there, it doesn't even start there. If at a protest is the only time you're against racism and you're saying that anti-blackness needs to stop, you're a part of the problem. This work needs to continue past protests, past social media. You gotta speak up and use your voice when you see injustice. Another thing I want to touch on, this ally word. Take it from a black queer person. There's no such thing as an ally. It is made up. It's giving white savior complex. It's giving non-black savior complex. And we gotta do better at rejecting things like that. When we come together, there's always going to be struggle. That's literally what we're saying, is that when we struggle together, we win together. There's going to be anti-blackness and racism when we work together. When people of color, when BIPOC come together, there's going to be anti-blackness and racism. What we don't do is put the work and the burden of explaining anti-blackness and racism on the people experiencing anti-blackness and racism. Educate your damn self, especially if you're not going to pay me for my labor. I shouldn't have to, for one, go through the trauma of your anti-blackness, your racism, your homophobia, transphobia. I shouldn't have to. Ableism. And then also bear the burden of educating you on why it's wrong. That doesn't make any sense. So let's start doing better about that. The next thing I would like to address is that I am the founder of ProvX, Progressive Reform Overrides Violence X. A couple things I want to overrides violence. Reform is not going to change a goddamn thing in this country. When the name progressive reform overrides violence is said, I want you to think of at a job when a manager has to come in and override a code so that a customer can receive a discount. What that name means is that if our oppressors don't reform this shit, which we know they won't, violence is just gonna have to be our answer. So that's basically me saying, fuck you, we're gonna fight, and we're gonna win. So I just want to be very clear on that. The other thing I want to address about Provex is that the other day, I made a post in the light of 7 Asian sex workers being murdered in Atlanta. With further reflection, I can understand, and I definitely see why it was wrong to make a post like that. What we're not gonna do is pretend like two things can exist at the same time. What we're not gonna do is pretend that black people do not bear the brunt of oppression in every single subject, category, field, anything that you can think of. When we say stop Asian hate, understand that nobody is responding with stop all hate. Understand that. So when we say stop Black Lives Matter, when we say stop the war in Black America and all lives matter, we need to stop the war on all people, is said. It's also your duty as a person of color, as a BIPOC, to stand up and let people know that there won't be liberation for any of us if there's not liberation for black people first. And I feel like that's missing from the conversation. And I'm gonna wrap this up. I don't want to be too long-winded, but I just want to end this with, I know for a fact that state-sanctioned violence is going to kill me one day. I'm going to be very clear. A protest, a vigil is not what I'm going to want. If you truly consider yourself an ally, an accomplice, burn this shit down when they kill me. Burn this shit down when they murder any black person in this country. It was built on our backs, so the fact that we're suffering while we live in it makes absolutely no sense to me. And we shouldn't be the only ones fighting for our liberation. This is an everyone problem. So the same way that black people, especially black non-men, black trans people are uncomfortable living in this world, all of us should be uncomfortable. Because this is every day for us. So it needs to be every day for everyone so that we can all get tired of it and that we can actually eradicate it once it starts oppressing all of us the same. Thank you, I'm done speaking.
Give it up for Brooklyn! I don't want to hold y'all out too long. Y'all gotta eat some dinner. So, next up, our last speaker today, Enrique Sanchez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Enrique Sanchez. I'm a substitute teacher in the Providence Public School System, and I work with Black and Brown youth. I help organize and support many leftist and advocacy groups across the area. I advocate and support our people of color in the community, our LGBTQ+ family, our non-binary family, environmental justice groups, the working poor, and marginalized and voices of our community. The state cannot keep killing us even during a pandemic. What a tragedy. Today, I stand in complete solidarity and support with our lost brother, Daunte Wright, who was murdered at the hands of the police state once again. Daunte Wright leaves behind a child and a partner. Another young baby of color will grow up without a parent. How many more times are we going to have to stand and watch a person of color, and especially another black person, be executed before our very own eyes? Woo! Woo! How many times do we have to watch white police officers escalate a situation? How many times do we have to watch black and brown police officers stand by and do nothing while their white bosses tell them to go against their own people? Yes! Yes! Calling out all police officers and all members of the police forces. They're all complicit and perpetuate the same system of oppression police and military executions of human beings like Daunte Wright, Breonna Taylor, Vanessa Guillen, and George Floyd. Police officers would rather to choose a dollar and property over the life of human beings. Police violence and militarism were part of the partial futures of white supremacy and white and black and brown capitalism preying on our most vulnerable at home. The argument is, who is going to contain the gang and drug and gang violence in the streets? Who is going to prevent robbery, theft, and domestic violence? Who is going to keep civil order and peace in the streets? Who is going to keep people like Daunte Wright from escalating during a traffic stop? To hell with their escalation. Daunte Wright was the one without a firearm in his hand. It's always the police officer with a handgun in their pocket and a high-caliber firearm in their cars.
Yes.
Enough with what the escalation BS is. We're tired of it.
Yes.
We must first look to the root causes of the city. We must ask ourselves questions like, why do people turn to crime and violence? Why do people carry guns in the streets? Why do people sell drugs? Our government is a huge supporter of guns and gun rights and laws.
Yes.
Our government supports the illegal flow of drugs in our communities across the country. Don't let them fool you. That's their bait to go after our most vulnerable in our communities across the state and across the country. And weapons are allowed to be sold on the streets through the black market and through weapons and manufacturing companies for a reduced price. Racism, poverty, lack of education, and lack of opportunity for our most vulnerable in the state and in the country. That's the answer to these questions. A solution to these issues is we change this by our economic and social model. We advocate and push for non-violent first responder programs and alternatives to policing. We minimize the amount of firepower that police in this country have. We keep pushing our elected officials to divest funds from policing and militarism back into our communities and for resources and funds. We invest in quality public education for everyone and invest in public institutions that will provide for everyone and not only a few selected. We push for more after-school programs and sports teams across the city. A lot of students in this district end up having to go to another school to play sports because the school that they attend does not offer the program. The issue that the police and the state bring up will only be resolved until we implement a system that provides for all. There is no other option. We must continue fighting for our people until we see no more horrific videos of black and brown people being executed by cops on Twitter and Facebook. Let's keep fighting until we all can live in peace and harmony. The police here serve most elitists that have a position of power in that building right behind me. Don't get me wrong, we have some good BIPOC, progressive, leftist elected officials who are putting up a good fight, but we are still outnumbered. We will depend on the movement and the masses of the people to achieve ultimate victory. Right. Let's keep fighting until we see more people of color in power, not committing to capitalism and serving white supremacy, but rather supporting progressive leftist values and morals that will serve the interests of all people and not a selected few. Let's keep fighting until we see no more reasons for our people to keep fighting for their lives. I will keep fighting until my last breath on this earth and until all people are liberated. Solidarity and love with Daunte Wright and all victims of police brutality. Thank you, everyone.
With that being said, I would like to leave you with a few more words. First off, I want to thank everyone out here for coming out today. Why don't everybody give themselves a round of applause again. It's starting to get cold, so I just want to say that I love each and every single one of you. I hope each and every single one of you are safe and drive home safely tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Hi, this is Will James for Uprise Eye. This is a protest in solidarity with Daunte Wright, who was murdered in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. This is the same state where George Floyd was killed. A lot of
Excuse
very...
me, everyone. Excuse me. For the meantime, if you have social media, please follow BLMRI PAC. If you have social media, please go to BLMRI PAC to get involved. Thank you.
They're saying to please follow.
Please call the governor's office and tell him not to fund further funding for police. Thank you.
So 2 calls to action to follow BLMRI PAC on Twitter at BLMRIPAC, and to call the governor and ask him not to further fund police officers. That was the second part from State Representative David Morales, a socialist who represents Providence, who is a member of the Democratic Party. Yeah, so Will James, Uprisor I, protest for Daunte Wright at the Rhode Island State House. I'm just gonna walk around, maybe get some signs, and then I'll sign off. A lot of very specific speeches tonight, very local to Providence, a lot of calls to action about different ways that people can get involved. If you're on desktop, you can scroll back now and see those. If you're not on desktop, you can wait for the live stream to end and go back and see that. As always, Steve Alquist, our other reporter, is here, and he will be writing an article discussing or specifying the things people talked about. If you're someone who follows Uprisor I often and you're messaging us privately to ask us how to get involved, we always tag everyone, and people always say the name of their organizations. Follow them on social media, reach out to them. We are a news organization and we do not directly participate in the activism. You gotta go somewhere else for it, but we'll always be here to document it.
No, but I'm saying that doesn't always mean like. Okay,
I would say maybe 200 people, probably more than 200 people came. Hey, what are you estimating, 200?
No, it was closer to 6. I counted 100, 100, 100, 100, and I was like, all right.
All right, so Steve Alquist is estimating 600 people here today. So a very large protest. Obviously, me being at the audience now, a lot of people had just left. It ended 5 minutes ago. I think I saw Treasurer Seth Magaziner here. Of course, State Representative David Morales is here, as well as State Senator Sam Bell. Representative Morales and Senator Bell are both socialists, democratic socialists, who are members of the Democratic Party. There were many calls tonight to kind of criticize the way that moderate Democrats in the Rhode Island legislature have responded to calls from black activists. Many people pointing out that there hasn't been significant action. I'm still live streaming.
You like it?
Yeah, no, they were really specific. I love how specific all the speeches were. They're very local. They very definitely stand out. All right, so this is pretty much the end. A A lot of the good signs have left, unfortunately, so I didn't get camera of that. Try to do that at the beginning of the protest next time. But this is Will James for Uprise Our Eye. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate our Patreon donors. It allows us to pay ourselves sometimes and pay for this streaming service that sends it to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and camera and all that stuff, gas, you know. So if you can donate it, definitely support us on Patreon. We would really appreciate it. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in.
Be a little efficient. Your first official day, you're a supporter.
You're right. I didn't know you was from. Yeah, we live at the Heights. We're looking at some other places, but you know how. Yeah.
We moved in 20 over this. We bought our house. Right.